This happened to me when I was 24, and I'm only now at a place in my life where I can talk about it without it ruining my week. I still live with roommates, two of them, people I've known for years, but what happened in that apartment in Montreal made me genuinely rethink what it means to trust the person who sleeps down the hall from you. Her name was Sasha. We met through a Facebook group for people looking for shared housing in the Plateau Montreal neighborhood, which, if you know Montreal, you know it's full of young people, artists, grad students, all of that. She seemed perfect on paper. Quiet, employed, a few mutual friends in the city. We had coffee before she signed anything. She was warm. She was funny. She had this easy way of laughing that made you feel immediately comfortable. I liked her. She moved in September. The first 2 months were fine. More than fine, actually. We cooked a dinner together sometimes. We watched movies. We had the kind of easy, low-pressure roommate dynamic that most people would kill for. The first time something felt wrong, I told myself I was imagining it. It was November, a Friday evening. I came home from work exhausted and went straight to my room. I hadn't told Sasha I was coming home early. I hadn't told anyone, actually, because I had been planning to go to a friend's birthday thing and only canceled an hour before because I had a migraine. I showered, changed to pajamas, and at some point I walked to the kitchen to make tea. Sasha was at the kitchen table with her laptop open and a mug already sitting across from her, like she'd been expecting company. She looked up and smiled and said, "Rough day? I made chamomile." I thought, how sweet. I sat down. We talked, I drank the tea, and then I mentioned the birthday party I'd bailed on, and she nodded and said, "Yeah, I figured you wouldn't go." I stopped. I said, "How did you know about the party?" She paused for just a fraction of a second. Then she said she must have overheard me on the phone earlier in the week. I accepted it. I filed it away. But then it happened again and again. Small things. She knew about a fight I'd had with my mother, a phone call I'd taken in my bedroom with the door closed. She knew my schedule changes before I announced them. Once, she mentioned a name, a guy I'd been talking to, that no one in my physical life at the time knew about, and when I asked how she knew that name, she said, "You talk in your sleep." I don't talk in my sleep. I never have. My mother has shared a house with me for 18 years. She has never once told me I talk in my sleep. I started paying attention, quietly, carefully, without telling Sasha. I noticed that things in my room were sometimes not quite where I'd left them. A book on a different angle, a phone charger on the wrong side of the nightstand. My journal, which I kept in the drawer of my desk, was sometimes facing a slightly different direction than I'd left it. Nothing dramatic, nothing I could point to and say you were in here, just the constant low-grade wrongness of objects that had been disturbed and returned. The thing that broke me was this. One evening in January, I came home and went into my bathroom and noticed that the small Bluetooth speaker I kept on the edge of the tub was in a different position. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands, and on the underside where the charging port was, I noticed something that hadn't been there before. A small sticker, the kind you'd put on luggage to identify it. Circular, about the size of a fingernail. I looked what it was on my phone, sitting on the bathroom floor, door locked. It was an NFC tag. If you don't know what that is, it's a small chip that can be read by smartphones when in close proximity. You program them to trigger actions. The most common use is automation. Tap your phone near one, it opens an app or a playlist. But there's another use. You can use them to log when someone is nearby, to know when someone enters a room. I don't know how long it had been there. I don't know if there were others I missed. I searched my room for an hour and found one more pressed into the underside of my desk lamp. I don't know what information they were collecting or where it was going. I texted my closest friend in the city, told her I was coming to stay for a few days, gave no reason. I packed a bag. On my way out, Sasha was in the living room. She looked up from her phone. She smiled like always, and she said, "Early night?" I said yes. I left. I did not go back alone. I had a male friend come with me 2 days later to collect the rest of my things while Sasha was supposedly at work, though I kept checking over my shoulder the whole time. I reported it to my landlord. I called the non-emergency police line. Both were sympathetic and useless. No one could prove anything. She hadn't technically done anything provably criminal. She still lives in that apartment, as far as I know. What I think about most often, when I let myself think about it at all, is this. How long was she doing it before I noticed? How much did she know? And what exactly was she doing with what she knew? I have no answers. I have the sticker. I kept it. I don't know why. I think because some part of me needs to know it was real. It was real.
The reason I'm putting this story out there is simple. I talked myself out of believing my own experience for 3 years. 3 years of telling myself I was stressed, I was sleep deprived, I was confused about what I saw. And then recently, someone close to me went through something similar, and I realized that if I had told my story earlier, if someone like me had come forward, maybe it would have helped them recognize what was happening sooner. So, here it is. My roommate's name was Joel. We'd been friends since college, not close friends, but friendly. We ran in the same social circles, we had the same taste in music, we'd watched the same sports teams. When we both ended up in Atlanta after graduation, moving together seemed like the obvious thing. We found a 2-bedroom in a nice enough neighborhood near Midtown. Moved in at the start of 2019. It was fine, normal, comfortable. In August of that year, Joel got a promotion that required him to travel a lot. He was gone sometimes 2-3 weeks at a time, flying between Atlanta and various cities for work. The apartment was mine during those stretches. I got used to it. I got used to coming home to an empty place, eating alone, sleeping alone, having the TV to myself. In October, Joel came home from a 3-week trip, and something was different about him. I don't know how to describe this in a way that doesn't sound dramatic or vague because I've tried 100 times and it never quite lands. He looked the same. He talked mostly the same. He knew everything he was supposed to know, our inside jokes, his own history, my name, our mutual friends, but the rhythm was off. Like a song played at the correct notes, but slightly wrong tempo. Something in the timing of his responses, something in the way he'd pause just a half beat too long before laughing at something funny, like he was deciding whether to laugh rather than just laughing. I told myself he was tired. Travel fatigue, jet lag, new stress from the promotion. The first concrete thing I noticed was the food. Joel had been a pretty adventurous eater. He was the person who always wanted to try a new restaurant, who would order the most unusual thing on the menu. After he came back from this particular trip, he ate the same 3 or 4 things on rotation. Rotation without variation. Eggs and toast, chicken and rice, a specific brand of protein bar. I pointed it out once jokingly, and he looked at me with this flat expression and said, "I just know what I like." Okay, people change. Then there was the sleep situation. Our bedrooms shared a wall, and over 15 months of living together, I had become unconsciously familiar with Joel's sleep schedule. He was a night owl, up until 1:30 a.m. watching TV or gaming, slept in on weekends. After the October trip, he went to bed at 9 p.m. every single night, and he was up before 5 a.m. every single morning, like a switch had been flipped. I started noticing that he never called anyone, not once. In the months after his return, did I hear him on the phone. No calls to his parents, who he used to call every Sunday. No calls to his girlfriend at the time, a woman named Trish, whom I liked, and who eventually texted me in December asking if Joel was okay because he had stopped responding to her entirely. I asked Joel about Trish. He said they had broken up. He said this without emotion. He moved immediately to asking what I wanted for dinner. By December, I was genuinely unsettled. I started keeping a note on my phone, just small observations, dated, things that struck me as wrong. I don't know why I did this. I think because writing things down made me feel like I wasn't losing my mind. The note that finally made me do something was December 17th. I'd written, "Joel referred to himself in the third person twice today in a 15-minute conversation. Both times caught himself and corrected it, did not acknowledge it." I went to see a mutual friend of ours, a guy named Darnell, who had known Joel since high school. I told him some of what I'd noticed. I expected him to laugh me off. Instead, he went quiet. Then he said that Joel had bailed on Thanksgiving, first time in a decade, and that when he'd called Joel to check on him, Joel had seemed like he was reading off a script. Darnell said that, exact words, like he was reading off a script. I contacted Joel's mother in January, told her I was just checking in, kept it casual. She told me Joel had visited her in September, the month before the October trip. She said the visit was wonderful. She said he seemed completely himself. Then she said something that has never left me. He even brought me those shortbread cookies I like, the Scottish ones from that import shop. He always remembers that. She laughed. I know it's a small thing, but I love that he remembers. I asked Joel about the cookies 2 days later, offhand. I said something like, "Hey, your mom told me you brought those shortbread cookies she likes. That's nice." Joel looked at me. He said, "She loves those." He said it correctly. He said it in exactly the way a person would say it if they remembered bringing those cookies. But his eyes, while he said it, did not match the warmth of the words. It's the hardest thing to explain. His face did the right thing. His eyes were just watching me. I moved out in February. I gave a vague reason about needing a change, moving closer to work. Joel accepted it without protest, without any particular sadness or curiosity. He helped me move boxes into the moving truck with the same efficient, robotic pleasantness that had become his default. I have not spoken to Joel since. Darnell told me last spring that Joel still lives in the Midtown apartment, now with 2 different roommates, that he seems fine, that he still travels for work. I don't have an explanation for what happened to my friend. I've thought about this in every direction, in every quiet moment, for the better part of 3 years. A mental health crisis, a traumatic experience on one of those trips that changed him, something neurological. I've considered it all. What I keep coming back to, and I'm sorry because I know this sounds like I've been watching too many movies, is that I never once, in all the months after October, heard Joel on the phone with his parents. Not once. Not a single call from anyone from his life before. Except the trip. Except whatever happened during those 3 weeks. I don't know what I'm suggesting. I genuinely don't. I just know that the person who came back to that apartment was not entirely the same person who left. And I know that whatever he is now, he is still out there, living normally, traveling, staying in apartments with people who have no reason to notice anything is wrong. That's the part I can't stop thinking about.
I want to start by saying something I've never told anyone outside of my therapist. The reason I'm telling this story now, 4 years after it happened, is because last month I drove past the apartment complex where all of this took place, and I had to pull over on the side of the road. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold the steering wheel. I sat there in my car for almost 20 minutes, just breathing. That's when I knew I needed to get this out. It was a Tuesday night in late October. I remember the exact date, October 22nd. I know because I had a work deadline the next morning and I was still awake at 1 a.m., sitting at my desk with my laptop open, trying to finish a report. My roommate, a guy named Craig, had gone to bed hours earlier. I could hear him snoring through the thin wall that separated our bedrooms. That sound, that slow, rhythmic snoring, was actually the thing that kept me calm. It was background noise. It was normal. At some point around 1:15, I got up to grab a glass of water from the kitchen. Our apartment was a standard 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a complex in Portland, Oregon. Long hallway connecting the bedrooms to the living area, kitchen off to the left. I padded down the hall in my socks, flipped the light on, filled my glass. That's when I noticed the front door. It was open. Not wide open, not like a break-in, just slightly ajar, maybe 3 or 4 inches, with the deadbolt still retracted and the door swaying the smallest amount in the draft coming up from the stairwell. My first thought was that Craig had gone out for a smoke and forgot to pull it shut all the way. He smoked occasionally, it wasn't crazy, but then I remembered the snoring. I had heard him snoring, clear as anything, not 5 minutes ago. I walked to the front door, looked into the hallway. Empty, no one. just the dim yellow light of the corridor and the elevator at the far end. I pulled the door shut, locked the deadbolt, put the chain on, something I had never done before in 2 years of living there, and went back to my desk. I told myself he must have gone out before I woke up and came back. I told myself I must have imagined the snoring being that recent. I almost believed it. At 2 a.m., I finished my report and finally decided to sleep. I shut my laptop, went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth. On my way back to my room, I passed Craig's door. It was closed. Still snoring. I should have felt relieved. I didn't. Something was pulling at the back of my brain that I couldn't explain, like a word you can't remember. You know it's there, you just can't reach it. I went to bed, I turned off the lamp, and in the dark, lying on my back, it finally hit me. I put the chain lock on the front door after I found it open. Craig's room was on the other side of that front door. If Craig had gone outside and come back in, he couldn't have gone back in with the chain on. But he was in his room, snoring, which meant Craig had never gone outside, which meant whoever opened that door was still somewhere in the apartment. I lay completely still for what felt like an hour, but was probably 30 seconds. I did not move, I did not breathe loudly. My body understood the situation faster than my brain did, every muscle locked up, every nerve ending screaming. Then I heard it, a slow, careful creak from inside the apartment, a slow, careful creak from the hallway, followed by another, something moving toward the bedrooms. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, slowly, with 2 fingers, not lifting my arm, and I dialed 911 with the volume all the way down, screen brightness all the way down, and I held the phone flat against my mattress and whispered as close to silence as I could manage. I told them my address, I told them someone was in my apartment, I told them not to call back. The creaking stopped. Silence. For 7 minutes, and yes, I watched the seconds tick on my phone. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. The apartment was completely, unnaturally quiet. And then I heard the front door, the slow drag of the chain being slid back, the click of the deadbolt turning, the door opening and then shutting. Whoever it was knew how to work a chain lock from the inside. Police arrived 6 minutes later. They searched the entire unit. They found nothing missing, nothing disturbed. Craig slept through the whole thing and was furious when officers knocked on his door. He thought I was paranoid. He thought I dreamed it. What the officers found and what they told me, quietly, away from Craig, with expressions that they were trying very hard to keep professional, were 2 things. First, a small smear of something dark on the inside of the linen closet door in the hallway. The closet I never opened because Craig used it for storage. The officers photographed it and said it was consistent with a handprint, although they couldn't confirm anything without a lab. I never heard back on that. Second, the bathroom window. It faced the building's rear alley. It was cracked open 2 inches. I had not opened that window. Craig had not opened that window. We were on the 3rd floor, but the fire escape ran directly past it. I moved out within 2 weeks. Craig stayed. He texted me 6 months later to tell me that a woman 1 floor above us had reported a man hiding in her apartment for what the building manager believed may have been multiple nights. He had apparently been using the fire escape to enter units through bathroom and kitchen windows. They never found out who it was. I live alone now. I check every window every night before I sleep, every single one. And I still cannot explain the snoring I heard, slow, steady, completely normal, coming from behind Craig's door, while Craig, according to Craig, was deeply asleep in his room. I don't have an explanation for that part. I've tried not to think about it too hard.